Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Drive presented by DraftKings Sportsbook here on Boot Crew Media. I'm your host, John Hendricks, coming at you to talk a little bit about Saints, obviously. That's why you're here. Tuesday injury report is out for the team. Obviously, we got a little bit of a look at them today. Again, Dennis Allen kind of stressed this earlier in the week that, hey, this is not really like a big old practice or anything. You don't have players with helmets on. It's kind of like a walkthrough mentality. I mean, although they are doing football stuff, but look, let's start with the good news for the Saints right now, and we'll start with Chris Olave. He is good to go. He said he's good to go for Thursday night against the Cardinals. That's probably some of the best news that you can get for the Saints this week. Just the simple fact that he's going to be available for the wide receiver core for presumably Andy Dalton because he was taking QB1 reps at practice, even though he's dealing with a back injury. So we'll find out the final or official word on Wednesday, hopefully, maybe Thursday, just depending on how things linger. But, getting Chris Olave back for this offense is going to be a huge thing. Obviously, last week against the Bengals, not ideal with how things played out. But, again, you look at Chris Olave being such a huge part in moving the change, very familiar target with Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston. He's kind of been one of their best offensive players that they've had all season. So getting him back from the concussion is a big step forward. And speaking of potentially getting back, Alante Taylor is another guy that, he had the MCL sprain. And so really with him, he said he's itching to get back on the field, right? And so we'll see if he's going to play. He was on the field today practicing. So that's the first big step in the IR process of returning that practice window. We've seen guys like Malcolm Roach do that and then get activated. Just depends on how things shape out. Obviously, they could use him, was part of walkthroughs at the number one team on corner. So maybe that's a sign of things to come. But of course, we'll just have to see how it plays out. Now, on the guys that aren't going to play, right? Or probably let's start with not going to play first. Michael Thomas, still that toe injury. You obviously have Jarvis Landry dealing with the ankle injury. We talked about that on this program last week. A little bit of insight on that. You're obviously not going to have Marshawn Lattimore again, the abdomen issue. And then it depends because we talked to Adam Troutman, ankle injury. He definitely avoided a serious injury. So kind of up in the air there. I mean, the fact that he even tried to come back in that game was good. Didn't have any type of walking boot on or any type of tape or anything like that we saw from things. So that's encouraging. But obviously, I would say look for Nick Vannett to come up and be active for this game, regardless of if Troutman does end up playing. Now, I don't think we'll see Andres Pete. He's dealing with a chest injury. Didn't see him today. Wasn't spotted at the facility. Calvin Throckmorton he missed last week with a hip injury. He would presumably be starting left guard. Keep an eye on Lewis Kidd, though, just in case that Throckmorton's not able to go, but he was taking reps at left guard today for practice that we got to see for that open portion available to the media. And so things shape out a little bit differently there. Marcus May was upgraded on the injury report. And, of course, you got to remember here the caveat that Monday was an estimated report, so they didn't actually practice on Monday. So this was kind of our first look. And again, you're not talking about like padded contact or anything like that. It's just you're dealing with a short week, so there's a lot to work on. One of the things I'd also say is this team right now just kind of like stay the course, keep going, keep grinding. I think this is an area where look, everybody knows what's going on right now. It's not ideal to be 2-4, right? But you have a chance to play and you got to defend against Kyler Murray. You've got to find a way to win to get to 3-4, right? And then try to crawl back out of the hole that you're in. They're still very much alive within the division, but obviously when it comes down to it, there's a lot of things that go into it and things that have been kind of maddening. We've touched on some of those points here, but look, Saints overall, still 14 players on the injury report. I talked to Keith Kirkwood afterwards in the locker room. He thinks he should be good to go for Thursday, so they'll have at least another wide receiver, Rashid Shaheed. He made such a big impact. I think he'll get a little bit more involved in the game plan on Thursday night. But look, Saints have to find a way to win. They're going to have to do it without a lot of their key starters again. And I think the hope is here that after this kind of mini bye, if you will, when you take on the Raiders right before Halloween, that you have pretty much everybody back to normal. If you think you probably would roll back to Jameis Winston at quarterback. You'll have Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry. You'll have a lot of these key guys that have been missing, and of course, Marshawn Lattimore being one of the big ones too. We'll see how it shapes out. As always, be sure to check out our special promo for DraftKings. It's the code BOOT, B-O-O-T, 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 high, Freudian slips, whatever you want to call it. But your chance to get $200 in free bets just off a $5 bet. Again, you talk about Thursday Night Football. It's off and on. Maybe you don't roll the dice on there with the same game parlay with guys like Taysom Hill or something, and maybe a good chance that Chris Olave gets into the end zone. I think Alvin Kamara could be really in for a big game. So maybe you're feeling lucky. Kamara over 60 yards. He's been well over 100 in the past couple of games. Maybe even more than that, right? And then Olave getting in the end zone and Dalton over 150 yards in passing. Find yours, though, and use the code BOOT for DraftKings Sportsbook. Again, this has been another episode of The Drive presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm John Hendricks. We'll talk at you again tomorrow. Be on the road, but we'll get some type of thing to talk about the final injury report. Thanks, guys.